Hello, and welcome, once again, to the Crime Whisper tonight. We dive into Rio de Janeiro crime stories, where behind the music and beaches lies a brutal underworld of power and blood. Rio de Janeiro, the city of music, beaches, and color, from the glitter of Copacabana's shoreline to the favelas stacked like labyrinths across the hills. Rio was a paradox. Paradise in daylight, hellfire in the shadows. Tourists came for the samba and carnival, but the people who lived here knew another truth. Rio was a city of masks. Smiles hid, desperation, laughter drowned out the sound of gunfire. And behind every carnival float was a coffin waiting to be filled. The protagonist, Detective Rafael Soares, had grown up in the Complexo Dual, one of Rio's most feared favelas. He knew the alleys, the slang, and the invisible lines no outsider dared cross. For years he had tried to outrun his origins, joining the civil police, dressing in suits, speaking carefully so no one could hear the slum in his voice. But Rio never forgot where you came from. By his 40s, Rafael was a man carved from the city itself. Broad shoulders, eyes that rarely blinked, a jaw always set in suspicion. His colleagues called him Pedra, the stone unmovable, unbreakable. On a sweltering January morning, as carnival season approached, Pedra found himself summoned to a crime scene on the edges of Rio's largest favela. The crime. The body was young, a boy, no older than 19, sprawled face down in an alley. His shirt was ripped, his sneakers stolen, his back carved with strange markings. Rafael crouched, his hand brushing against the still-warm concrete execution. He muttered his partner, Inspector Camila Duarte, snapped photos, sweat dripping down her brow. Another 1/3 this week. Always kids, always the same carvings. The markings weren't random, they were letters, symbols etched crudely into the skin. With a blade, Camila read aloud, her voice low. CV Rafael's jaw tightened. Comando Vermelho. The Red Command, one of Rio's oldest and most ruthless gangs. But Rafael shook his head. No, too obvious. The CV doesn't tag bodies like graffiti. They don't need to advertise, everyone already fears them. Camila glanced around nervously. Even the alley felt like it was listening. Then, who's trying to send a message? The Whisperess. They left the crime scene. A woman in her 60s approached, clutching a plastic grocery bag. Her eyes darted around, her voice barely audible. Senor Detective Suarez. She recognized him. Locos always did. It wasn't the commando. Rafael turned. Who then? Her hand shook as she pressed a folded piece of paper into his palm. They call themselves a serpent. The serpent knew men, foreign money. They want Roshinha. Before Rafael could ask more, she slipped away into the crowd, vanishing like smoke. Camila frowned. The serpent. Never heard of them. Rafael unfolded the paper. A phone number, nothing else. Rio's dual faces that evening. As the sun bled into the Atlantic, the city transformed on Ipanema Beach. Music played, caipirinhas flowed, and couples danced barefoot in the sand. Just a few miles away, in the favela's armored police vehicles rolled in, headlights sweeping like predators. Israfel sat in his unmarked car, overlooking the city, cigarette smoke curling from the window. Camila scrolled through her phone. Nothing in the system about a serpent, not a word either. They're brand new, or someone's erasing their tracks. Rafael tapped ash out the window. Every empire starts in silence. They're testing us with kids' sacrifices to draw attention. Camila looked at him. And if we don't stop them? He exhaled smoke, his eyes fixed on the glowing hills. Then Rio gets a new king, and kings in this city demand blood. The call at midnight. Rafael's burner phone buzzed. The number matched the paper from the old woman. He answered. Voice steady. A man spoke. The tone was smooth, almost elegant, with a faint accent. Portuguese, but not local. Detective Soares, the city says you're a stone hard cold, but even stones crack under the right pressure. Rafael didn't reply. He let the silence drag. The man chuckled softly. You want to know who we are? Soon. Everyone will. For now. Listen. The Comando Vermelho is finished. The Amigos dos Amigos are finished. "We are the serpent, and Rio will kneel." The line went dead. The fireworks the next day. Carnival rehearsals filled the Sambadrome with drums and feathers. Tourists cheered, cameras flashing, but outside, in the narrow streets of Rut, a different kind of fireworks erupted. Gunfire rattled through the favela. Explosions echoed against the hillsides. Entire blocks descended into chaos as masked men stormed through, setting fire to houses marked with CV symbols. Camila's radio screamed with overlapping calls. Shots fired in Roshina, multiple fatalities. Raphael threw the car into gear, sirens wailing as they sped uphill. He gritted his teeth. The serpent's not whispering anymore. They're declaring war by nightfall. Roshina was burning. Families fled down the hillside carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs. Police lines struggled to contain the violent sand in the chaos. Detective Raphael Soros realized something he hadn't admitted in years. Rio de Janeiro wasn't just under siege. It was being reborn into something far darker. The serpent had arrived the morning after the Roshina massacre. Rio woke to headlines that read like carnival banners. Gang clash leaves 23 dead in Roshina. Police Comando Vermelho retaliation suspected, but in the favelas, no one believed it. The people knew better. This wasn't Comando Vermelho. This was something new. The scene of fire. Detective Raphael Soros stood at the edge of the hill, boots sinking into soot. Black smoke still curled from burned-out homes. Mothers wept in the street. Children clung to their fathers' legs, their eyes wide with trauma that would never fade. Camilla took photos quietly. Her jaw tight. Official line is CV versus Ada. That's what they're feeding the press. Raphael squatted near a charred wall someone had carved into the concrete before it was scorched. The symbol wasn't letters. This time it was a serpent, twisting fangs bared. He whispered, "They're branding territory." Camilla crouched beside him. "So the rumors are true?" He nodded. "The serpent wants everyone to know Rio belongs to them now." The informant. By noon, Raphael and Camilla made their way deeper into Roshina. They needed a voice from the street, someone who knew what the papers wouldn't print. They found him at a bar with no name, just a corrugated metal door, and a smell of stale beer. Paulo Mosquito out. A wiry man with quick eyes sat in the corner. Mosquito had grown up with Raphael back then. He was a scrawny kid who stole soccer balls. Now, he was an informant who traded whispers for protection. Pedra. Mosquito greeted with a nervous grin. "You always find me when hell opens up, don't you?" Raphael didn't smile. "Tell me about the serpent." Mosquito sipped his beer, glancing at the door. "There, not from here. Money flows in from outside. Foreign men, white suits, clean shoes. They don't talk like cariokas. They talk like businessmen. Businessmen who burn children alive." Camilla snapped. Mosquito shrugged. "In Rio, business is blood. They buy loyalty with cash, fear with bullets, and they're smarter than CV or Ada. They don't fight over scraps. They're buying whole neighborhoods." Raphael leaned closer. "Who leads them?" Mosquito's grin faded. He lowered his voice. "They call him O Cobra, the Cobra. No one's seen his face, but they say he doesn't just want the favelas. He wants the banks, the ports, the carnival itself." The tension in the station back at the precinct. Raphael briefed his commander, Chief Morera, a heavyset man with a politician's smile. "Sir, we're not looking at CV or Ada. This is organized, well-funded. They call themselves the Serpent." Morera waved a hand. "Dismissive, Soros. The press already has its story. Gang clash. That's all we need to say." Raphael's jaw tightened with respect. "Sir, that's bullshit. If we let this group spread, they'll own Rio in a year." Morera leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "And if you keep pushing this, Soros, you'll find yourself reassigned to traffic duty. Understand?" Camilla's eyes widened, but Raphael only nodded once. "Understood." As they left the office, Camilla hissed under her breath, he knows, and he's covering for them." Raphael lit a cigarette, smoke curling from his lips, "which means the serpent already has friends in high places." The message that night. Raphael returned to his small apartment overlooking the bay. He poured himself a glass of cachaca and sat in the dark. the city lights flickering below like a restless sea. His phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered. Distorted voice spoke in Portuguese. "Detective Sorastone, sink serpents, swim, choose your side before the tide rises." The line cut moments later. A loud crack echoed outside his window. A bullet shattered the glass. Embedding itself in the wall, inches from his head, Raphael hit the floor. Heart pounding, he crawled to the window, pistol ready. But the streets below were empty, only the sound of waves hitting the shore. The dilemma the next morning. Camila arrived at his apartment after hearing the news. She found Raphael sitting on the couch, cigarette in one hand, bullet in the other. "They want me scared," he muttered. "They think fear works." Camila frowned. "So what's the play?" He looked at her, eyes hard. "The play is, we stop pretending we're not just cops anymore. We're soldiers in a war the city doesn't admit exists." Camila swallowed. "Then we'd better prepare for war." The carnival masked 2 nights later. Raphael and Camila followed a lead Mosquito had given them, a warehouse near the port, supposedly used by the serpent from the shadows. They watched masked men unload crates from a truck. Not drugs, not weapons, costumes, feathers, sequins, elaborate floats for carnival. Camila blinked. "What the hell?" Raphael's stomach dropped. "They're laundering through the parade. They'll own carnival. And once they own carnival, they own the heart of Rio." As if on cue, one of the masked men turned, his face briefly illuminated by the glow of a cigarette. It wasn't just a worker, it was a politician, a councilman. Raphael had seen shaking hands at City Hall weeks earlier. Camila whispered, "Jesus Christ, they're already inside." From the beaches of Ipanema to the burning alleys of Regina, the serpent was weaving itself into Rio's soul, and Detective Raphael Soares realized the truth. He wasn't chasing a gang, he was chasing a new empire, one that wore carnival masks by day and carried machetes by night. And in Rio de Janeiro, empires were built on blood reels. Carnival drums grew louder with each passing night, but beneath the music, the city was trembling. The serpent wasn't hiding anymore, it was feeding, spreading, taking over the lifeblood of Rio with the precision of a surgeon detective. Raphael Soares felt it in every call, every whisper, every corpse that hit the ground. The war wasn't about territory anymore, it was about control of the city's soul. 4 in hand, Camila sat at her desk in the precinct, eyes locked on a laptop screen filled with financial records. "Look at this," she said, spinning it toward Raphael. "Wire transfers from Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Hong Kong, all feeding into companies registered right here in Rio." Raphael scanned the files, and all those companies linked to carnival schools, samba groups, even food suppliers. He leaned back, cigarette dangling from his lips. The serpent isn't just laundering money, they're buying Rio piece by piece with our own culture. Camila's fingers hovered over the keyboard, and someone's helping them keep it clean. These transfers don't move themselves. The betrayal. 2 days later, Raphael received a tip. An old contact in the federal police wanted to meet, claiming he had documents tying the serpent to a sitting senator. They met in a cafe in Lapa, the kind where music poured through cracked speakers, and the air smelled of sweat and fried pastries. The contact, a nervous man named Augusto, slid an envelope across the table. "It's all here. Names, numbers, proof the senator is protecting them." Raphael opened it, scanning quickly. Bank records, offshore accounts, phone logs, enough to ruin a career. Then he noticed that the envelope was too thick to prepared. He looked up at Augusto. "Who else have you given this to?" Augusto's eyes darted. Sweat dripped down his temple. "No one, just you." Raphael's gut clenched. The cafe door opened. Men in white suits walked in. "To clean." Too sharp for the neighborhood. Their eyes locked on Raphael. "Run." Raphael muttered. Augusto froze. The men drew pistols. Silenced shots cracked. The cafe erupted in screams. Augusto slumped forward, blood soaking the envelope. Raphael flipped the table for cover. Returning fire. Camila burst from the side alley, pulling him toward the back door as they fled into the chaos of La Paz night. Raphael's mind burned with one truth. Someone inside the federal police had betrayed them. The Cobra speaks that night, as Raphael cleaned blood off his jacket in his apartment sink. His phone buzzed again, the same distorted voice, "You dig too deep." "Detective, the Cobra doesn't like stones in his path," Raphael growled into the receiver. "You think I'm afraid of you? You're just another parasite feeding on Rio." The voice chuckled. "Rio is already ours. Every parade, every senator, every bullet you. Dance to our rhythm now. Stop fighting, and maybe we'll let you live long enough to enjoy the carnival." The line clicked. Raphael stared at his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. His own eyes looked unfamiliar harder. Darker. The funeral. 2 days later, Raphael and Camila attended Augusto's funeral. It was small, quiet, filled with more fear than grief. His widow didn't cry. She only stared blankly at the coffin, as if tears would mark her as the next target. Camila whispered, "They killed him just for talking. How do we fight something that strong?" Raphael clenched his jaw. "By being stronger, by being smarter. They're not untouchable. No one is, but deep inside." Even he wasn't sure. The journalist that evening, Raphael was approached by someone unexpected. A journalist, Mariana Costa, an investigative reporter with O Globo. Found him outside the precinct. "You're chasing the serpent, aren't you?" she asked. Bluntly, Raphael narrowed his eyes. "You should be careful who you say that to." She smirked. "Careful doesn't get stories told. I have sources, people inside carnival schools, bankers, even politicians. They're terrified, but they'll talk to me. You want to bring the serpent down? We do it together." Camila stepped closer. "Suspicious? Why risk your life?" Mariana's smile faded. "Because my brother was one of the boys they carved up in Racina, and the police won't even put his name in the papers if no one fights. They win." Raphael studied her face for the first time in weeks. He saw something rare. Defiance. "Unbroken by fear, all right," he said finally. "But if you stay in this, you don't get to back out." She nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." The warehouse raid 3 nights later, with Mariana's intel. Raphael and Camila moved on another serpent warehouse in the docks. They expected drugs or weapons instead. They found something worse. Documents, ledgers of payments to police officers, judges, city council members, lists of carnival organizers marked with either paid or dead. Camila's hand shook as she flipped through there. Everywhere. "They've already bought half the city." Mariana snapped photos, her voice grim. "Now we prove it." But before they could escape, headlights flared outside, engines roared, trucks surrounded the warehouse. Raphael raised his pistol, eyes narrowing. Trap. The warehouse's metal walls rattled as the first bullets tore through them. Sparks rained from steel beams, and the smell of salt water mixed with gunpowder. Raphael dropped to the floor, dragging Camila and Mariana down with him. "Stay low." Outside, the serpent's trucks screeched to a halt. Dozens of armed men spilled out, their movements precise, coordinated. This wasn't a street gang raid. This was a military-style operation. They knew we'd be here. Camila, his Raphael's stomach turned. "Yeah, and I know how the first wave gunmen fanned out." Encircling the warehouse, a voice boomed through a megaphone, distorted but commanding. "Detective Ceres, come out and lay down your weapons. You've seen too much." Raphael shouted back, voice steady despite his racing pulse. "You'll have to kill me first." Gladly, the shooting intensified. Bullets shredded crates and barrels, filling the air with splinters. Mariana clutched her camera to her chest, whispering, "I can't die here, not like this." Raphael's pistol barked in reply. Each shot, precise as serpent soldier, dropped by the loading bay. Camila covered the opposite flank, reloading with calm precision for a moment. The three of them held the line, but they were outnumbered 22-1. "The escape plan storage office," Raphael barked, pointing toward a small, elevated room at the warehouse's back. "Windows face the water. Might be our only exit." They sprinted under fire, bullets chewing the concrete at their heels. Raphael shoved open the office door, sending them inside from the window. The black waters of Guanabara Bay shimmered under moonlight. A rusty fishing boat bobbed against the pier below our ride. Raphael said. Camila frowned. That thing won't start. It doesn't need to start. Raphael muttered. It just needs to float. The betrayal confirmed as they prepared to climb down. Raphael's radio crackled to life. It was a police frequency unit, 14. Report, we have confirmation. Saurus is inside. Do not let him escape. Repeat, do not let him escape. Mariana's eyes widened. That's your own people. Raphael froze. Bile rising in his throat. There it was, the confirmation, a mole inside the force. Feeding the serpent everything they've marked me, he muttered to them. I'm already dead. The plunge, with no time left. Raphael smashed the window with his pistol and motioned for Camila and Mariana to climb out. Go. Into the water. Camila didn't argue. She slid down the ledge. Plunging into the dark bay below, Mariana hesitated only a moment before following. Clutching her bag of evidence, gunmen burst into the office behind them. Raphael fired back, covering his partners before diving into the freezing water. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. Salt stung his eyes as bullets pierced the water's surface. Streaks of silver chasing them downward, he grabbed Mariana, pulling her toward the fishing boat. Camila was already climbing aboard. Teeth chattering together, they heaved Mariana up. Then Raphael scrambled after the chase. The boat's old engine coughed to life after 3 desperate tries behind them. The serpent's men poured onto the dock. Opening fire, sparks danced across the boat's hull. Faster. Mariana screamed, ducking below the railing. The engine roared, pushing them into open water, but headlights flared on shore. More vehicles, more men, and then the sound of something worse. Speedboats slicing through the bay. They're coming after us, Camila muttered, loading her last magazine. Raphael gripped the wheel, eyes narrowing against the spray. Then we make them bleed. The bay of fire. The serpent speedboats closed in. Mounted with heavy machine guns, muzzles flashed, tearing across the water. Waves erupted around them. Raphael zipped, pushing the fishing boat to its limit. Camila returned fire, dropping one gunman into the sea. Mariana crawled to the stern, snapping photos even as bullets shredded the night. Are you insane? Raphael shouted at her. If I die, this story still lives, she yelled back. People need to see the serpent for what they are. A bullet clipped Raphael's shoulder, spinning him sideways. Pain seared through him, but he kept the wheel steady. Hold on. He steered hard, toward a cluster of cargo ships anchored offshore. The massive vessels loomed like dark giants, their hulls offering cover. The serpent's boats followed, but their speed worked against them. One slammed into a ship's hull, exploding in flames. Another swerved too late, capsizing in the churn. The survivors regrouped, but Raphael's battered boat slipped into the maze of freighters. Finally, out of their direct line of fire, the aftermath hours later, soaked and bleeding. They docked at a hidden inlet on the far side of the bay. Camila stitched Raphael's shoulder with a trembling hand, using a first aid kit salvaged from the boat. You're lucky the bullet didn't go deeper. Raphael winced but said nothing. His mind was elsewhere. Mariana sat nearby, reviewing the photos on her camera. Faces, weapons, documents. Enough evidence to light a firestorm if it ever reached the public. They'll never let this see the light of day, she whispered. They'll bury it before it prints. Raphael stared at her. Not if we burn their whole system down first. The serpents counter-struck. Meanwhile, across the city, the Cobra sat in a luxury penthouse overlooking Copacabana. He sipped whiskey as his men reported the failed ambush. Saurus lives, one said nervously. The Cobra's smile was slow. Serpent-like good. Let him live. Let him crawl deeper into the pit when I kill him. I want Rio to watch. I want them to see what happens when you challenge the serpent. He raised his glass to the night skyline. The carnival is coming, and it will be ours. The safe house was little more than a shack tucked into the mangroves, its wooden walls sweating in the heat. Raphael sat with his back against the door, pistol resting across his knees. Sleep refused to come every time he closed his eyes. He saw the serpent's men, the spray of bullets, the burning boats. Camila emerged from the shadows, holding a battered cell phone. Intercepted chatter. The serpent's furious, but they're also confident, they said. Our friend in uniform will clean this mess. Raphael's jaw tightened the mole. Ghosts in the force. The Rio police force was no stranger to corruption for decades. Entire units had been rumored to moonlight as militias, extorting residents in the favelas. But Raphael had always believed some lines wouldn't be crossed. He was wrong. Mariana set her camera aside. So someone inside your own department is feeding them everything. Names, locations, operations. Raphael nodded. That's how they knew about the docks and the warehouse. Who is it? Camila pressed. I don't know, Raphael admitted, but I know where to start. Back into the lion's den. Next evening, disguised in plain clothes, Raphael slipped back into central Rio. He moved through side streets until he reached the precinct he once called home. The building looked the same, peeling paint, humming fluorescent lights, but to him it was hostile ground inside. He spotted familiar faces, officers. He'd shared drinks with men he'd trusted with his life. Any one of them could be the traitor. He made his way to the records room, pretending to be on routine business. His old clearance code still worked. A small miracle, flipping through communication logs. Raphael's eyes narrowed. A particular call log stood out. Secure messages routed from an encrypted phone. Always minutes before serpent ambushes, and the signature on those logs. Captain Duarte. Raphael's stomach clenched. Duarte wasn't just any copy, was Raphael's mentor. The man who'd vouched for him when he was fresh out of the academy. The mentor unmasked later that night. Raphael confronted Duarte in the parking lot. The older man leaned against his black sedan, cigarette glowing in the dark. You shouldn't be here, Soros, Duarte said, without turning. Neither should you, Raphael replied. Stepping into the light. You've been feeding the serpent. Duarte exhaled smoke, finally meeting his eyes. You think you can fight them? You're a fool. The serpent doesn't just run the streets. They run the city. Judges, businessmen, generals, everyone takes their cut. You sold us out, Raphael growled. You sold me out. Duarte's voice was calm, almost pitying. I saved you. You could have been on the winning side instead. You chose to bleed for a city that doesn't want saving. Raphael leveled his pistol. Not anymore. Your time's done. But Duarte only smiled. If you kill me, they'll know, and then they'll gut that reporter girl and your little cop friend before sunrise. Think carefully. Boy, Raphael froze. Duarte was right. Pulling the trigger here would sign Camila and Mariana's death warrant. So he lowered the gun. This isn't over. The exposite. Next morning, Mariana sat cross-legged on the shack's floor, laptop glowing before her. Her article had gone live at dawn. Headline: The Serpent Beneath Rio, Crime Syndicate's Grip on the City. The piece was relentless. It described the ambush at the docks, the collusion between officials and cartels. The shadowy figure known only as the Cobra. Photos accompanied every claim. Faces of serpent gunmen, weapons, caches, and burnt-out speedboats. By midday, the article was everywhere. Newspapers, online feeds, talk radio. For the first time, the serpent's name was on every tongue in Rio. Camila glanced at Raphael. She just painted targets on all of us. Raphael nodded grimly. Good, let them come. The city needs to see whose blood runs in the streets. The backlash. The response was immediate. Police headquarters issued a statement calling Mariana's report irresponsible and unfounded. Politicians denounced it as fear. But in the favelas, people whispered with hope. For once, the enemy had a name. Then came the retaliation. By nightfall, serpent soldiers set fire to 2 newspaper offices downtown. Gunmen sprayed bullets into a radio station that had read Mariana's report on air. The message was clear: silence or burn. Mariana slammed her laptop shut. Trembling, I started a war. Raphael placed a steady hand on her shoulder. No, you just told the truth. They started the war long ago. Lines in the sand. That night, Raphael, Camila, and Mariana sat around a flickering lantern in the shack. The roar of cicadas filled the silence between them. They'll come harder now, Camila said, and Duarte will make sure the police look the other way. Raphael nodded. Then we find allies outside the system. Mariana frowned. Who? The favelas, Raphael answered. The people who've been paying the price for decades. They know the serpent better than anyone. If we can rally them, we might stand a chance. Camila raised an eyebrow. You're talking about open rebellion? Raphael met her gaze, eyes hard. I'm talking about survival. The carnival looms as their plan formed. The city above them glittered with lights. Carnival preparations filled the streets, dancers rehearsing, floats being painted, samba echoing through alleys. But beneath the music, tension coiled like a spring. Rumors spread that the serpent was planning something during carnivals, something that would cement their control forever. Mariana whispered, if they take carnival, they take Rio. Raphael loaded his pistol, staring toward the skyline. Then we stop them at carnival. The favelas of Rio climbed the mountainsides like patchwork scars. Corrugated roofs glinting in the sun, walls painted with graffiti that screamed both joy and despair from afar. They looked alive, children playing soccer, music spilling from windows, vendors shouting about fried pastels. But up close, the cracks showed. Bullet holes pocked the walls. Families mourned sons lost to gangs, and fear lingered like smoke. This was where Raphael had grown up, and it was where he now returned, not as a cop, but as a fugitive. The meeting. Camila led the way through winding alleys, her hand hovering over her pistol. We can't just walk in here expecting smiles. Soros to them. You're still a cop, and cops mean raids, bribes, and blood. I'm not here as a cop, Raphael said quietly. I'm here as one of them. Mariana trailed behind, camera bag slung across her shoulder. Then you'd better prove it fast, because every eye here is watching us. Indeed. Children had stopped their games, staring with suspicion. Men leaned against doorways, radios crackling coded messages. Word spread through the hillside like wildfire. A policeman in their midst at last. They reached a concrete courtyard, where a dozen men waited, armed with shotguns and homemade rifles. At their center stood a wiry figure, with sharp eyes and a scar down his cheek. Matias Silva, the de facto community leader. Soros, Matias said, voice flat. Didn't think you had the guts to come back here. I'm not here for me, Raphael replied. I'm here because the serpent won't stop with the favelas. They want the whole city, and they'll bleed every one of you dry to get it. Matias snorted. We've been bleeding for decades, and where were you? Kicking down our doors, dragging our boys to prison. Raphael held his ground. I can't undo what I was part of, but I can fight now, and I can give you something you've never had before, chance to strike back. The deal. Silence stretched in the courtyard. The men shifted uneasily. Mariana raised her camera, but Raphael motioned for her to lower it. This wasn't a moment for lenses, it was a moment for Matias stepped closer. What makes you think we'd fight alongside you? Because the serpent is planning something during carnival. Raphael said, something big if they succeed. You won't just lose your streets, you'll lose your city, and when the serpent takes Rio, there won't be a favela left standing. Matias's jaw tightened. What do you need from us? Eyes, weapons, people who know these hills better than any map. You help us, we bring the serpent down together. Matias studied him, then nodded slowly. One chance. Soros, screw us, and your body will never be found. Raphael extended his hand. Matias clasped it. The pact was sealed. The Cobra's carnival across town. In a lavish mansion overlooking Ipanema, the Cobra hosted his generals. The room pulsed with samba music, dancers entertaining as lieutenants as cocaine lines glittered on polished tables. But when the Cobra spoke, silence fell. This carnival, he declared, will belong to us. The parades, the music, the cameras, all eyes will be on Rio. And when the world is watching, we strike. A general leaned forward. What's the plan, Shafe? The Cobra's smile was cold. Explosives planted along the parade route. A few accidents blamed on rival gangs. Chaos in the streets while the city burns. We step in as saviors, offering protection. Politicians will beg for our help, and by Ash Wednesday, Rio will be ours. Applause thundered. Glasses clinked outside. Fireworks boomed across the beach. The Cobra raised his glass to carnival, to the serpent, training the resistance back in the hills. Raphael and Camila began training the favela fighters. They showed them how to set ambushes, disarm rifles, and move silently through the Alice Mariana, documented everything not for publication yet, but for history if we survive, she told Raphael one night. The world will need to know that the people of the favelas didn't bow, they rose. The fighters grew more confident with each passing day. Old hunting rifles were cleaned. Stolen police weapons distributed. Mattias himself drilled the youngest, teaching them to use slingshots and Molotovs for the first time in years. The favela didn't just whisper about resistance, it prepared for it, the price of defiance. But the serpent wasn't blind. One evening, as Raphael returned from patrol, he found a message painted in blood-red letters on a favela wall. Traitors burn below. It hung the body of a young lookout, no older than 16. His hands were tied, his throat cut. Mariana covered her mouth, tears welling there, warning us. Raphael clenched his fists. No, they're daring us. Mattias spat on the ground. Then we answer that night. The resistance struck first, ambushing a serpent convoy on the hillside. Explosives lit up the night sky, burning trucks to ash. For the first time, the serpent bled on their own turf lines of loyalty. But even as morale soared, Camila remained cautious. She cornered Raphael. After the ambush, you're playing with fire. She warned, these aren't trained soldiers, they're kids. Mothers, desperate people. If this goes wrong, they'll pay the price. Raphael met her gaze, his voice steel. They're already paying the price, at least this way. They have a chance to fight back. Camila sighed, rubbing her temples. You sound like a revolutionary, not a cop. Maybe I stopped being a cop the moment Duarte betrayed me, Raphael said quietly. The gathering storm carnival was only days away. Floats glittered in warehouses. Dancers rehearsed beneath strings of lights, and tourists poured into Rio with wide-eyed smiles. The city vibrated with anticipation, unaware of the war building beneath its rhythms. In the hills, Raphael's resistance made their final preparations. Guns were oiled, routes mapped, safe houses stocked. Mariana uploaded encrypted files to international contacts, ensuring that if she fell, the story would still live in the serpent's mansion. The Cobra placed a hand on a golden mask he planned to wear during carnival. Let them dance, he murmured. They won't hear the hiss until it's too late. Carnival exploded across Rio like a fever dream. The streets pulsed with music, samba drums pounding like war drums, trumpets wailing, and voices chanting in unison. Costumes glittered with sequins, feathers, and neon paint. A living river of color flowing through the avenues from the balconies above. Tourists cheered, cameras flashing from the alleys below. Locals joined in, bodies swaying, sweat shining in the tropical heat to the world. Rio was celebrating, but beneath the masks, a different game played out. Ties. In the crowd, Raphael scanned the sea of revelers from the rooftop of an old apartment building. Camila crouched beside him, rifle resting across her knees. Too many bodies, she muttered. If they hit the crowd, the death toll will be catastrophic. They will, Raphael replied grimly. That's the point. Mariana, dressed in civilian clothes, with a carnival mask, stood behind them, camera at the ready. We need proof. If the world sees them plant explosives, it'll change everything. Raphael shook his head. Proof won't matter if everyone's already dead tonight. We stop them before they strike. The serpents parade across town. Floats rolled out of warehouses, dazzling with lights and elaborate designs. One in particular drew whispers. A massive golden serpent, scales painted in metallic hues, its body coiling across the length of the float atop. Its head stood the Cobra himself, disguised as a carnival king, his face hidden by a gilded mask. He raised his arms to the roaring crowd, smiling beneath the glitter and music. To the revelers, he was just another performer. To Raphael, he was death incarnate. The bastard's making himself a spectacle, Camila said, watching through binoculars. He wants Rio to worship him, Raphael muttered. But tonight, we cut the mask off the trap, unfolds Mattias, and his favela fighters moved through the crowd in pairs, blending with dancers and drummers. Each carried hidden weapons, pistols tucked beneath costumes, knives strapped to calves, explosives disguised as party props through ear. Raphael coordinated check parade route. Look for packages, wires, anything unusual. Minutes passed, then a voice crackled back. Found something under the bleachers. Sector 4. Raphael's blood ran cold. Sector 4 was packed with tourists. Families, children, defuse it. He ordered. No time. The voice replied to complex. We'll need backup. Raphael turned to Camila. You go. I'll track the Cobra. Camila hesitated. If you go after him alone. I won't be alone, Raphael said. Glancing at Mariana, the journalist met his eyes. Fear mingling with defiance. Let's end this. The Cobra's performance. The golden serpent float entered the main avenue. Cameras from around the world broadcast its glittering magnificence. Fireworks cracked above, showering sparks. The Cobra basked in it, raising his hands like a god descending among mortals. His lieutenants moved in the crowd below, planting more devices, guiding their men into position. But then, one of them froze. His earpiece crackled. We've got company. The favela rats are here. The Cobra's smile didn't falter. He raised his champagne glass and whispered, Good, let's dance under the bleachers. Camila and 2 resistance fighters crawled beneath the bleachers. The bomb's timer blinked menacingly. 2 minutes left. Can you disarm it? One fighter asked, voice trembling. Camila studied the wires, sweat dripping down her forehead. Maybe, or maybe it'll blow us all sky high above them. The crowd stomped and cheered, oblivious to the death ticking beneath their feet. Camila took a deep breath and cut the first wire. Sparks flew. The timer skipped to 1 minute faster. She whispered the rooftop. Raphael and Mariana pushed through back alleys, climbing onto a rooftop overlooking the serpent float. Mariana raised her camera. I have a clear shot of him. This is history. Stay down, Raphael warned. Pulling his pistol, he sighted the Cobra, standing like a king on his golden throne. But just as he squeezed the trigger, a shadow lunged from behind. A serpent soldier slammed into Raphael, sending his gun clattering. They fought viciously, fists cracking against bone, knives flashing in the nightmare. Anna screamed as another soldier grabbed her arm. She swung her camera into his face, the lens shattering on impact. He reeled, blood streaming from his nose. Raphael drove his attacker off the roof with a brutal kick, then grabbed Mariana's hand. Stay close. This ends now. The bomb silenced beneath the bleachers. Camila's hands shook as she cut the final wire. The timer froze at 0:03 for a heartbeat. No one breathed. Then, the resistance fighters laughed in disbelief, clapping her on the back. Camila exhaled, adrenaline flooding her veins. One down, but there'll be more. The Cobra unmasked back on the avenue. Raphael pushed through the crowd until he was within meters of the float. He climbed onto the platform, shoving aside dancers, and aimed his pistol at the Cobra. The music drowned the gasps. The crowd thought it was part of the show. Your carnival's over. Raphael growled. The Cobra tilted his head, golden mask glinting under the lights. Then, with slow precision, he removed it. His face was calm, almost beautiful, but his eyes were pure venom. No, Sores, it's only beginning. At his signal, fireworks erupted, not above the city, but from hidden launchers. In the crowd, explosions tore through side streets, screams ripping through the celebration. Panic spread instantly, revelers trampling each other in terror. The serpent had triggered. Their KO samba drums still thundered in the background, but now their rhythm clashed with the screams of thousands. Carnival had twisted into a nightmare. Lights flickered through smoke, fireworks bled into explosions, and the serpent float rumbled like a beast caught between celebration and destruction. The duel begins. Raphael lunged across the float. Pistol aimed, the Cobra sidestepped gracefully, drawing a long knife from his belt. You think you're the hero? The Cobra hissed, voice barely audible over the chaos. Heroes die first. In Rio, Raphael fired the shot, tore past the Cobra's mask, grazing his cheek. Blood streaked across his golden paint, but his smile widened. You missed, he mocked. Raphael swung again, but the cobra closed the distance, slashing steel. Met flesh. Raphael felt the blade nick his arm. He staggered, gritting his teeth, refusing to fall. Camilla's race in the tunnels beneath the grandstands. Camilla sprinted alongside Medius and 2 resistance fighters. They found another bomb wired to the support beams. Its timer blinked in sync with the pounding music above 3 minutes. Matthias said. Camilla dropped to her knees. "Tools out, cover me, Matthias," and the others raised weapons, firing into shadows where serpent soldiers lurked. Bullets ricocheted against concrete. Carnival masks fell from the dead as their killers revealed themselves not dancers, but assassins dressed for the party. Camilla's hands moved faster. One wrong cut, and the grandstands would collapse, crushing hundreds. Mariana's escape. Mariana stumbled through the crowd, her broken camera clutched like a weapon. The footage card, the only evidence tying the cobra to the bombs, remained intact in her pocket, but serpent enforcers spotted her. 3 men in feathered costumes stalked through the panicked masses. Eyes locked on Hershey, ducked into a food stall, overturning tables, scattering fried pastels and drinks. The owner screamed, but Mariana didn't stop. She shoved her way into an alley, breath ragged behind her. One of the serpents called out, "The journalist. Don't let her out." The float burns back on the golden serpent float. Raphael and the cobra clashed like gladiators. The cobra struck with elegant precision, his knife flashing under the stage lights. Raphael blocked with his pistol, parried, then countered with brutal punches. Each strike was fueled not just by survival, but by vengeance for every life lost under the serpent's rule. The float lurched forward, sparks shooting into the sky. Flames licked at the paper match serpent. Black smoke rising. "You fight for ghosts." The cobra snarled, "I fight for Rio." Raphael spat, slamming his fist into the cobra's jaw. The crowd below, confused and terrified, began chanting without knowing why. "Peaks. Beishi. Beishi." The fisherman's nickname. Raphael Sares rose like a war cry, defying the cobra's spectacle. Betrayal in the shadows as Camilla clipped the final wire. Matthias's rifle clicked empty. He shouted for cover, but no answer came. He turned dumbly to see one of their own resistance fighters aiming a gun at his chest. "You," Matthias gasped. The man smirked. "The cobra pays better." Before the traitor could fire, Camilla hurled her wire cutters. They struck his hand, making the shot miss. Matthias lunged, tackling the man into the wall. They grappled violently, fists and blood flying. Camilla shouted, "The bombs, safe, finish him." Mattis did with a final brutal slam. The traitor's head cracked against concrete. Silence followed. Matthias spat, blood. The serpents everywhere. Camilla wiped sweat from her brow. "Then so are we." Mariana's last stand. Mariana sprinted through alleyways, serpents on her heels. She ducked into a church courtyard, her lungs burning. Priest opened the door. Startled, "Child, what's happening?" "They'll kill me," Mariana gasped, clutching her pocket. "Please hide this." She shoved the memory card into his hand. The serpents burst into the courtyard, blades gleaming. Mariana picked up a fallen crucifix from the ground, wielding it like a club. "You want me?" she yelled. "Come take me." The fight was hopeless, but Mariana's courage burned brighter than the carnival fires. She struck one across the face, before another slammed her to the stones. Her vision blurred as they dragged her away, but the card, the proof, was safe. The cobra cornered Raphael, forced the cobra against the serpent's head, pressing his pistol into the crime lord's chest. Both men dripped blood and sweat, their costumes torn to rags. "This city will never bow to you," Raphael growled. The cobra laughed, spitting blood. "It already has every cop, every judge, every soul. Dancing tonight, they belong to me." He lunged, shoving the pistol aside, and both men toppled onto the burning float. Fire engulfed the golden serpent, sparks cascading onto the terrified crowd. They rolled across the stage, striking, stabbing, clawing for dominance. Camilla's choice from the tunnels. Camilla emerged just in time to see the float burning. Raphael locked in Mortal Kombat peaks. She screamed, shoving through the crowd, But then she spotted something worse. 3 more bombs wired into the parade route itself. Hidden in speaker towers there, timers blinked. 90 seconds. Camila froze. She could run to save Raphael or save the crowd. Matthias grabbed her arm. We can't do both. Her eyes filled with tears. I won't let Rio burn together. They sprinted toward the towers, the knife and the gun. Raphael and the cobra grappled at the serpent's mouth. The cobra's blade slashed, opening a wound across Raphael's ribs. Pain seared through him. But he refused to fall. He remembered his father's voice. The fisherman survives because he knows the sea. He never fights the current, he moves with it. Raphael shifted, letting the cobra's lunge carry him forward in one swift motion. He reversed their positions, jamming his pistol against the cobra's temple. This is for Rio, Raphael said, finger tightening on the trigger. But before he could fire, the cobra whispered, "Then Rio dies with me," and his hand revealed a detonator. The golden serpent float burned like a funeral pyre. Smoke billowed into the carnival night. Fireworks exploding overhead, as if mocking the chaos. Below, Raphael pressed his pistol to the cobra's temple. But the gleaming detonator in the crime lord's hand froze him in place. One squeeze. The cobra hissed, blood streaming down his cheek. And Rio becomes ash, a city held hostage. The crowd surged in panic. Some screamed, some prayed. Some collapsed in the crush of Bodhi's dancers and feathered headdresses trampled children in their desperate escapeless units. Overwhelmed, fired shots in the air to restore order, but for every officer present, 10 serpent enforcers mingled among the crowd, fueling the panic, slashing at innocents, spreading terror. And above it all, the cobra grinned, enjoying the spectacle he had engineered. "Shoot me, Saurus," he sneered. "Be the hero. Let's see how many bodies your victory costs." Raphael's finger trembled on the trigger he had killed before. But this would doom the city. Camila's countdown across the parade route. Camila and Matthias sprinted toward the speaker towers, where the final bombs pulsed with red light. 120. Camila slid on her knees, ripping open the panel of the first tower. Wires tangled like veins. Circuits humming, she pulled out her cutters. Heart pounding. Matthias covered her. Gunfire rattling from serpent soldiers who realized what she was doing. He fired back, shouting, "Faster! They'll overrun us." 0:59, Camila muttered under her breath, sweat dripping. Red or blue? Red or blue? She cut. Sparks flew. The timer skipped. 0:43, she cursed. Wrong one. Mariana, in captivity far from the Carnival Avenue. Mariana was dragged into an abandoned theater by serpent thugs. They chained her to a chair in the center of the stage, her face bruised, lips bleeding. One enforcer leaned close. "The cobra says you like filming secrets tonight. You'll film your last." He held up her shattered camera, mocking her. "No more stories." "Little bird," Mariana spat blood onto his shoes. "The truth doesn't need me, it's already out there." The thug sneered. "Not if no one lives to tell it." They laughed, but Mariana saw fear in their eyes. Even the serpents knew Rio's fate rested on their leader's thumb. The fisherman's choice on the burning float. Raphael kept his gun steady. The cobra's detonator glowed red in the shadows of his hand. "You've lost," Raphael said. "The people are turning against you." The cobra's smile widened. "People are cattle. They run where the whip drives them, and tonight, I hold the whip." He pressed the button slightly. The light blinked faster. Raphael's heart slammed. He had seconds pulled the trigger. Or stop his hand. He lunged, grabbing the cobra's wrist. The 2 men wrestled violently, the detonator jerking between them. Flames roared higher, consuming the serpent float bill. The crowd screamed as fire rained from above. Camila's gamble. 0:28, Camila's hands shook. She ripped off another wire. Still nothing. "Camila," Matthias shouted, firing wildly as bullets cracked overhead. A serpent soldier charged. Machete raised. Matthias shot him down at the last second. 0:17. Camila closed her eyes. She thought of her brother, lost to serpent violence. She thought of Raphael, still fighting on the burning float. And she thought of Rio, her city, her people. She cut the green wire. The timer froze. 012. Silence made us sagged with relief. One down, two more to go. Camila grabbed her tools. Then let's finish this. The float collapses. The serpent float cracked under the firewood splintered. Steel frames groaned. Raphael and the cobra rolled dangerously close to the edge. The detonator slipped between them, skidding across the flaming stage. Both men dove. Raphael's hand closed first around it. The cobra snarled, driving his knife into Raphael's side. Pain exploded through Raphael's body, but his grip on the detonator held firm. You die tonight, the cobra hissed. Then I take you with me, Raphael gasped. Pistol pressed to the cobra's chest once more. Mariana's defiance in the theater. The serpents set up a live stream camera. They pointed it at Mariana, her bloodied face illuminated by a single spotlight smile. One of them jeered, "The city will watch you die." Mariana laughed bitterly. "Even through the pain, good. Let them watch. Let them see the monsters you are." Her defiance rattled them. The leader backhanded her across the face, but her eyes never broke, even chained, even beaten. She was stronger than their cruelty, and deep inside, she prayed Raphael would survive. Camila ripped open the second tower. Sparks showered her face as she yanked wires. "Come on. Come on," Madius shouted. 5 seconds. She jammed both cutters in and sliced through the entire bundle. The timer went dead. They collapsed together, gasping. "One left," Camila whispered, but before they could move, a rocket-propelled grenade slammed into the ground beside them, throwing them across the pavements. Smoke cleared and more serpent reinforcements advanced the cliff edge on the float. Raphael and the cobra grappled at the very edge of the burning serpent's jaw. The crowd below had scattered, leaving only corpses and chaos. The cobra's blade pressed against Raphael's throat. Raphael's pistol pressed against the cobra's heart. Both men froze, panting, glaring, knowing only one could leave alive. "You can't save them all," the cobra whispered. "Maybe not," Raphael growled, "but I can stop you," and he pulled the trigger. The cobra's eyes widened. Blood poured from his chest as the shot echoed over the dying carnival. He staggered, knife dropping, before tumbling backward into the fire. The golden serpent swallowed him. Hold. The golden serpent float smoldered in ruins, its charred skeleton collapsing into ash. Smoke curled upward, blotting out the fireworks that still cracked mindlessly overhead. Raphael lay sprawled across the broken stage, one hand clutching his bleeding side, the other gripping the cobra's detonator. His body screamed for rest, but his mind refused. The cobra was dead, but victory felt hollow, 'cause even as the flames devoured their king, the serpent refused to die. The city, in panic across Rio. Chaos spread like wildfire. Sirens howled, gunfire echoed, and thousands fled through narrow streets clogged with abandoned floats and overturned cars. Radio chatter buzzed in every police unit. "We've lost control of the North Sector. Repeat, North Sector overrun. Bomb threats confirmed at the harbor. We need reinforcements. Any available units, respond." But reinforcements weren't coming. The city itself was the battlefield for years. The cobra's network had fed on Rio like a parasite. Tonight, even without him, it struck back in fury. Mariana's live streaming. The abandoned theater. Mariana hung in chains, blood drying on her face. The serpent thugs had set up lights and cameras, broadcasting her captivity across hacked carnival feeds, and even onto city billboards. Every screen showed her face. Every ear heard her voice. The leader sneered into the lens. "People of Rio, your hero Raphael Soares is dead. The cobra lives, and this journalist will die as an example of what happens when you defy us." He shoved the camera in Mariana's face. "Any last words?" Mariana's lips trembled, then she steadied herself, eyes burning. "Rio, don't bow. He's gone. The cobra is gone. I saw him fall. You can kill me, but you can't kill the truth." The serpent slapped her, cutting her lip open. Blood ran down her chin, but she kept speaking. "The truth survives." Millions across Rio watched, gasping, crying, clenching fists. The serpent's propaganda had backfired. Mariana's courage became their spark. Plus, Last bomb. Camila staggered to her feet, ears ringing from the grenade blast. Matias lay beside her, dazed but alive. The final speaker tower loomed ahead. Timer blinking. 1:45. Serpent enforcers advanced. Rifles raised. Camila raised hers back, teeth gritted. Go. Matias shouted, "I'll hold them." "No," Camila cried, but Matias was already charging forward. Unloading his last rounds in a spray of gunfire, Camila sprinted to the tower. Ripping wires open, her hands shook violently. Not from fear, but exhaustion. She had minutes left in her body. Seconds on the clock. 1:12. She cut, twisted, pulled sparks, scorched her palms. 0:37. Wrong move, and the entire parade route would collapse. She thought of Raphael, of her brother, of everyone screaming in the streets. She shut her eyes, listening not to the clock, but to her instincts. Snip. The timer froze. 0:06. Camila collapsed in tears, laughing hysterically. "We did it. We actually did it." But when she looked back, Matias lay sprawled in the street, unmoving. The fisherman rises back at the serpent float. Raphael forced himself upright, his ribs burned, blood soaking his shirt. Each step felt like drowning, but he pushed forward. He still had the detonator, if the serpents got it. The bombs across Rio could be reactivated. He stumbled into the crowd. Leaning against a wall, dozens of terrified civilians recognized him. A boy pointed its peaks. "He's alive." The chants spread like fire peaks. "Beishi! Beishi!" Strangers rushed to support him, pulling him to his feet. Their hands were steady, their eyes fierce for the first time. The people of Rio weren't running. They were rising. The serpents' counterattack in the theater. The serpents realized their broadcast wasn't sowing fear, it was fueling rebellion outside. Crowds were gathering, hurling stones and bottles. Chanting Mariana's name, the leader snarled, "Cut the feed, kill her now." He raised his knife, but before he could strike, a gunshot shattered the spotlight. Camila stormed in, face streaked with soot, rifle smoking. Step away from her, she screamed. The serpents turned, but the mob outside crashed through the doors. Citizens armed with kitchen knives, pipes, even carnival props surged in. The serpents weren't fighting soldiers anymore. They were fighting the city itself. Reunion in fire. Camila reached Mariana. Blasting the chains free, Mariana collapsed into her arms. "Coughing, you're late," Mariana croaked. Camila laughed through tears. "You never make things easy together." They stumbled out into the courtyard, where the crowd cheered for once. The people weren't afraid. They had tasted resistance and they wanted more. The detonators. Fate. Raphael arrived moments later, barely conscious, clutching the Cobra's detonator. The crowd parted for him like water. Camila and Mariana rushed to his side. His skin was pale, his breath ragged. "It's over," Camila whispered. "The bombs are dead." Raphael held up the device. "Not yet. This thing, it's still live." Mariana's eyes widened. "Then destroy it." Raphael shook his head weakly. "If it's linked, destroying it could trigger failsafes. It has to be disabled." Camila knelt beside him, tools shaking in her bloodied hands. "Then let me try." She worked quickly, sweat dripping onto the detonator. Raphael's hand covered hers, steadying her. "You can do this," he whispered. For one eternal moment, the world held its breaths. Nip. The detonator's light went dark. The crowd roared. The dawn after carnival rose blood red over Rio de Janeiro. Smoke curled into the sky from still smoldering ruins, while the once bright streets lay littered with glass feathers and corpses. The Cobra was dead, but in the vacuum of his absence, chaos was quick to flood in the serpent. Without a head, police intelligence intercepted frantic radio chatter across the city. Serpent lieutenants barked orders, not in unison, but in competition. "Sector East is mine. Pull the soldiers back. No Cobra promised me that territory. You dare betray me. We hold the docks. We hold the money. The rest of you can rot within hours." Firefights erupted between rival serpent factions. Machine guns rattled through grenades echoed in alleyways. Neighbors hid under their beds, while factions once united now butchered one another for scraps of the empire. But their violence spilled into the streets. threatening innocence as much as rivals Raphael in the shadows. Raphael lay in a small clinic tucked into the back of the favela. His side was bandaged, his breath shallow, his skin pale. Camila sat at his bedside. Exhaustion etched into her face. She hadn't left since he was carried in. Unconscious Mariana entered quietly, carrying a bag of supplies. The doctor says he'll live if the infection doesn't kill him first. Camila's eyes flicked up. He's stronger than any infection. Mariana hesitated, but what if he doesn't wake? He's the one people believe in. Without him, Camila looked down at Raphael's still face. Then they'll have to believe in us. The streets on fire by afternoon. Protests flooded Rio's main avenues. Civilians waved makeshift banners. Down with the serpent. Justice for Carnival. We are not afraid. But the serpent faction struck back. Gunmen on motorcycles rode through demonstrations, spraying bullets into crowds. Blood mixed with confetti on the pavement. Police forces tried to respond, but many were corrupt or too afraid. Some officers abandoned their posts entirely. One commander whispered bitterly, "Without Cobra, the gangs are worse." Not better, but Camila knew better. Their panicking animals bite hardest when they're cornered. Mariana's broadcast. Mariana stood before a borrowed camera in a small radio station hidden deep in the favela. Her bruises hadn't healed, but her voice carried like steel to the people of Rio. Carnival was not the serpent's triumph, it was his grave. The Cobra is dead. I saw it. Raphael Soros saw it. Camila cut the wires that would have destroyed us all. We are alive, and that is proof they can be defeated. She leaned forward, fire burning in her eyes. Do not let the serpent's lies control you. Do not let fear chain you. Stand with your neighbors. Defend your streets tonight. Rio belongs to its people, not to the gangs. The broadcast spread like wildfire. Radios blared in markets, favelas, and even police stations. For the first time, the serpent's voice was not the loudest. A funeral without a body. Meanwhile, deep in the underworld, serpent lieutenants staged a secret gathering. A golden mask, charred and broken, lay on a pedestal. The Cobra's followers knelt before it, swearing vengeance. One lieutenant, known as Joker, the alligator, snarled, "The fisherman thinks he won, but the serpent never dies. We shed skin, we return stronger." Others murmured in agreement. Plans formed. Kill Camila. Silence Mariana. Destroy what little hope remained, even without their king. The serpent's venom lingered. Camila takes the streets. Camila refused to wait, with Raphael bedridden. She gathered resistance fighters and marched into the streets of Complexo Duala, one of Rio's most dangerous strongholds. The serpent had long claimed it as theirs. Tonight, Camila painted its walls with bold white letters. Free zone. Neighbors peeked from doorways. Fearful, Camila raised her voice. They're weak. They're fighting each other, not us. This is our moment. We hold the street. We hold the city. Stand with me. For a moment, silence. Then, a grandmother stepped forward with a broom in her hand. A boy followed with a kitchen knife. Slowly, dozens emerged. Workers, mothers, youths. Camila's eyes filled with tears. They weren't soldiers, but they were hers. Mariana's capture attempt. But the serpent struck back fast. As Mariana left the station, serpent gunmen ambushed her car. Bullets riddled the windshield. Glass shattering over her. She ducked, crawling onto the street. Heart racing, gunmen chased her into alleys, shouting, "The journalist lives. Bring her in." Cornered, Mariana picked up a rock. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. Before the serpents could strike, a wall of locals swarmed in. Shopkeepers, kids, even off-duty. Bus drivers armed with bats and stones. They overwhelmed the attackers. One man spat at the dying serpent. "Thug, you don't own these streets anymore." Mariana stood trembling, but alive. The people had protected her. Raphael's whispering. The clinic. Raphael stirred. His eyes fluttered open to see Camila at his side, exhausted but unbroken. "You're alive," he whispered, voice hoarse. Camila leaned close, squeezing his hand. "So is Rio, because of you." Raphael shook his head weakly. "Because of you." He tried to sit, Groaning in pain, the cobra may be gone, but his shadow's not. They'll keep fighting until we cut out the rot. Camila pressed him back down gently. Then rest, we'll hold the line. Raphael's lips curved into a faint smile. The fisherman never rests. Camila, not until the sea is calm. The cobra's death had been a thunderclap. But the storm that followed was even worse. Rio de Janeiro was now at war with itself, fractured. Scales within days of the Carnival massacre. The serpent split into three rival factions. Zojacare, the alligator, brutal and cunning, seized the dock's control of smuggling routes. Meant Powerana da Sombra Ayana of the Shadow, one of the few female lieutenants, commanded the East Zone with a loyal army of killers. Her cruelty was whispered of, like ghost stories of Irma's Pretus, the Black Brothers, twins born in the favelas, took the drug trade in Rashina and Vidigal. They promised blood for anyone who dared oppose them. Gunfire erupted across Rio. Every night, grenades rolled down alleys. High-caliber rifles spat death from rooftops. The sound of fireworks once meant celebration. Now, it meant war. Children drew chalk outlines on the street, not as games, but to mark where bodies had fallen. The birth of the free zones. Camila refused to let despair win. With Raphael still too weak to lead, she stepped forward. She declared entire neighborhoods as free zones, territory liberated from the serpent, patrolled not by police, but by the people themselves, armed with kitchen knives, baseball bats, and a few smuggled pistols. Neighbors guarded their streets. Camila herself marched with them at night, shotgun slung across her shoulder in complexo. Duolemo, she rallied a crowd. Look around you. The serpent fights over scraps, while we fight for our children. They want fear, I want freedom tonight. This favela is ours. Cheers rose, echoing against the walls. Mothers banged pots from balconies. Youths spray-painted Zona lever across walls. It wasn't perfect. They had no uniforms, no radios, no real command, but the people stood taller with Camila at their front. Mariana's voice. Mariana turned her survival into defiance, broadcasting from a hidden studio. She spoke directly to the city each night. The gangs fight like vultures over a corpse. But Rio is not dead. It breathes in every favela, every family, every voice that refuses to bow. Her broadcasts spread through WhatsApp groups, pirated radio, even loudspeakers set up in markets. Police commanders listened in secret, some nodding, others gritting their teeth. Mariana was embarrassing them by doing what they couldn't, giving people hope, but hope had a price. A bounty of 500,000 reals was placed on her head by the serpents. Factions. Raphael's struggle. Raphael's fever finally broke. Pale and weak, he sat up in his clinic bed, listening to gunfire outside. Camila returned from patrol, her shirt stained with soot. She smiled faintly. You should be resting. I've rested enough, Raphael rasped. What's happening out there? Chaos. Jocker has the docks. Anna has the east. The brothers have Rashinha. They're killing each other by the dozens. Raphael nodded grimly. And in the middle, Camila's eyes softened. Us, the free zones. Mariana's broadcasts are spreading like wildfire. Raphael tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Camila caught him. You can't fight yet, she whispered. I don't have a choice. Raphael muttered, if I wait too long, the serpent will stitch itself back together. Camila pressed her forehead against his. Then let us hold it together for you. The serpents counterattacked. The serpent factions, though divided, agreed on one thing: crush the free zones. Before they grew Jacare, Asime raided Complexu, Dualamau. One night, storming with rifles and Molotov cocktails, Camila and her volunteers fought back fiercely, but they were outgunned. Gunfire rattled the narrow alleys. Sparks lit the dark. A boy of 14 fell beside Camila, his knife clattering on the ground. She grabbed his weapon and screamed. Charging forward like a storm, her fury drove Jacare's men back just long enough for reinforcements. Neighbors wielding bats and sticks to arrive when the smoke cleared. The free zone still stood, but Camila's hand shook as she washed blood off her skin, wondering how long they could survive. Mariana's gambit. Mariana knew the free zones couldn't endure without more supports, so she broadcast a daring plea. To the police of Rio, to the soldiers of Brazil, we are not your enemy, the serpent is join us. Or at least, do not stand in our way. The city cannot survive another carnival of blood. The plea reached beyond Rio. Into Brasilia itself, politicians debated whether to send federal troops. Some argued it was necessary. Others feared a massacre. Mariana had put herself on the line. If the government ignored her, the people would despair. If they listened, the serpent would strike her first. Raphael's choice that night. Raphael tried again to rise. Camila blocked him. You'll rip your stitches open, you'll die. Raphael's voice was ragged but determined. Camila, the fishermen, cannot stay in the hut while the sea burns. If I don't stand with them, they'll lose faith. The serpent will smell weakness. Camila clenched her fists, torn between fury and devotion. Then if you walk into hell, I walk with you. Raphael smiled faintly. No, if I fall, you must lead. You already are. Tears welled in Camila's eyes for the first time. She realized Raphael wasn't just her partner in rebellion. He was mortal, fragile, and if she didn't protect him, Rio's hope might die with him. The city had been waiting for a sign. It came on a humid night. When Raphael Soros appeared in the streets of Complexo, Dualamoth fisherman returns. He leaned on a wooden cane, his steps unsteady, stitches straining beneath his shirt. Camila walked at his side, hand hovering close in case he fell, but the moment the people saw him, the air shifted. A boy shouted, "Oh, Pesk!" The cry rippled through the crowd. "Oh, Pesk! Oh, Pesk!" The fisherman had returned. Raphael raised his cane like a banner. I should be dead. The cobra thought he killed me. The serpent thought it buried us. But look at us, we live. Rio breathes because of you. The cheer that followed thundered louder than gunfire. The gathering of Free Zone's words spread like wildfire from Rachinha to Vitgal, from Santa Marta to Cidade de Dias. Free Zone fighters poured into the streets, mothers carrying pots and pans, young men with bats and knives, shopkeepers with pistols hidden under their aprons. Thousands converged on the Avenida Presidente Vargas, Rio's central artery. For the first time in decades, the people, not gangs, not politicians, marched together. Mariana broadcast live from a rooftop, her voice echoing over speakers. This is the march of the free. Look at them. They are not soldiers. They are us. They are Rio. The serpent's fury. The serpent factions could not ignore such defiance. Jakar ordered his men to cut off the march. Trucks of gunmen rolled toward the avenue. Rifles glinting under streetlights. Ana da Sombra unleashed her assassins from the east. Masked killers, armed with machetes and pistols. The Black Brothers gathered their army of dealers, determined to bathe the march in blood. For once, the three factions shared a single goal: crush the fisherman before he lit a fire that could never be extinguished. Gunfire on the avenue. The first shots cracked like fireworks. Panic surged through the march. Mothers shielded their children. Men dove behind cars, but Camila stepped into the open street. Shotgun raised, "Hold the line," she shouted. She fired into the air, not to kill, but to remind them she was there. Slowly, the people, steady. Dreyfil, pale but unshaken, lifted his cane. We march, or we die on our knees. The crowd roared, pushing forward even as bullets hissed past. The people fight back at the intersection. Jacaris men tried to block the way, but neighbors fought back with bricks and firebombs. A grandmother hurled boiling oil from a window, scattering gunmen. Teenagers dragged burning dumpsters into the street, choking the enemy in smoke. Every block turned into a battlefield. Every rooftop became a fortress. The serpent had rifles, but Rio had numbers and fury. Mariana's broadcast from her rooftop. Mariana's voice trembled, but never broke. The serpent strikes, but the people do not bow. This is not a riot, it is a revolution tonight. Rio fights for its soul. Her broadcast reached homes across Brazil. In distant cities, people watched grainy streams on phones. whispering Rio, is rising in his shadow. Ana da Sombra herself entered the fray, machete gleaming under streetlights, her assassins cut through alleys. Ambushing the march from behind, Camila spotted her, a woman cloaked in black, moving like death, their eyes locked across the chaos. And sneered. Another peasant with a gun. Camila's grip tightened on her shotgun. Another ghost waiting for her grave. They charged, clashing in the middle of the street as the crowd screamed around them. The fisherman's stand Raphael staggered into the thick of the battle, cane in one hand, a borrowed pistol in the other. His stitches tore, blood seeping through his shirt, but he kept moving. A serpent gunman raised his rifle. Raphael fired first. The shot echoing through the avenue. The fisherman was no longer just a voice, he was a fighter, bleeding alongside his people. His presence turned panic into defiance. The march surged forward once more, pushing the serpent back step by step. The brothers trapped, but the Black Brothers had planned their move carefully. As the march reached Sinalandia Square, explosions tore through the streetcars, burst into flames. Debris rained down, screams filled the night. Out of the smoke, the brothers' men emerged, automatic rifles cutting into the crowd. For a moment, it seemed the march would collapse. Camila dragged Raphael behind cover, her chest heaving. We can't hold them. Raphael shook his head, eyes burning. We must, if we fall here, Rio falls forever. Sinalandia Square burned like a war zone. Smoke curled into the night sky. Street lamps shattered, cars overturned, and bodies littered the stones. The March of the Free had become a battlefield. Camila versus Ana da Sombra. Camila faced Ana da Sombra amid the chaos. Ana moved like a wraith, her machete gleaming under the neon. I'll carve your heart out and hang it where every favela can see. Camila leveled her shotgun. Try. Ana lunged first. Camila fired. The blast missed by inches, shredding a lamppost. Ana swung, sparks flying as steel scraped concrete. Where Camila had been standing, they circled, predator against predator. Camila dropped her empty shotgun, pulling a knife from her belt. No more hiding behind shadows tonight. You bleed. Ana smirked, eyes wild. Tonight, you die. The duel. The two women clashed in the middle of the square. Knives slashed, machetes swung. Each strike echoed louder than the gunfire around the man. His blade cut Camila's arm, blood splattering onto the pavement. Camila roared, slamming her shoulder into Ana, knocking her back. Ana laughed, wiping blood from her mouth. You fight like a dog, but the serpent raises wolves. Camila spat. Then I'll break their necks, one by one, with a furious cry. She drove her knife into Ana's side. The gang leader gasped, eyes wide, but instead of falling, she grinned through the pain. You'll have to do better. The fight raged on, each woman bleeding, neither willing to give an inch. Mariana's last stand from a rooftop overlooking the square. Mariana continued, her live broadcast, her voice cracked with desperation, but she refused to stop. The serpent has unleashed hell on Rio tonight, but look at the people. They fight with nothing but their courage, and they do not bow. This is history. Live before your eyes. Gunfire rattled below. A bullet whizzed past her head, shattering glass. She ducked, heart pounding, but pulled herself back to the microphone. If I fall tonight, remember this. Freedom is worth the blood we spill. Suddenly, serpent gunmen stormed the building. Boots pounded on the stairs. Mariana's cameraman shouted, we have to run. Mariana shook her head. No, we finish this. As the door burst open, she kept speaking, even as bullets tore through the studio. The fisherman bleeds. Raphael staggered at the front lines, his cane long gone, pistol shaking in his bloodied hand. His stitches had ripped. Crimson spread across his shirt. Young fighter tried to pull him back. You'll die, Raphael growled, voice ragged. Better to die standing than live kneeling. He raised his pistol and fired, each shot a defiant heartbeat. His aim was unsteady, but his presence alone pushed the marchers forward. When he faltered, Camila's voice cut through the chaos. For the fisherman, the cry spread. The crowd surged, driving serpent gunmen back toward the burning cars. The brothers unleash hell from the far side of the square. The Black brothers arrived with reinforcements, truckloads of gunmen wielding rifles and grenades. One twin shouted, "Burn them all!" Explosions rocked the square, fire-consumed buildings. Screams pierced the night, the Free Zone fighters scattered. Some breaking, others standing to fight. Tranquil collapsed against a wall. Bloodloss stealing his strength, his vision blurred for a moment. He thought he saw the sea, calm and endless. Camila dragged him upright, rage blazing in her eyes. "You don't die here, not tonight." The turning point has all seemed lost. A new sound cut through the square. Sirens, not the corrupt local police, but armored federal vehicles. Soldiers in camouflage stormed in, firing into serpent ranks. Marana's broadcast had reached Brasilia. The government could no longer ignore. Rio's flames, the serpent's unity shattered. Jackard's men clashed with the brothers. Ana's wounded assassins tried to flee. Confusion spread like wildfire. Camila, bloodied but unbroken, saw her chance. She drove her knife deep into Ana de Sombra's chest. The assassin leader gasped, dropped her machete, and fell to the stones. Camila stood over her, chest heaving. The shadow's end. Here the square holds with federal troops pushing in, and the serpent factions tearing each other apart. The march of the free reclaimed. The square smoke hung thick, bodies lay scattered, but the people still stood. Raphael, half conscious, was lifted onto the shoulders of marchers. They chanted his name, louder than the gunfire that still echoed in the distance. "O pescador, O pescador." Camila stood at his side, knife still dripping. Mariana, wounded but alive, carried her broken microphone like a flag against all odds. The people had not fallen. The fires in Sinalandia Square smoldered for days. Burned cars sat like skeletons. Windows were hollow eyes, and the stench of blood lingered in the humid air. The march of the free had survived, but survival was not victory. The arrival of the state-armored trucks rumbled through Rio's avenues. Federal soldiers in camouflage set up checkpoints at intersections, sandbags at plazas, and machine guns on rooftops. To some, they were saviors. To others, invaders. Mariana's voice carried on the airwaves. "The government has come at last. But ask yourself, did they come to protect us, or to control us?" Behind the microphones, her doubt deepened. Brasilia had ignored Rio until blood ran through its streets on live broadcast. Now, politicians posed for cameras beside soldiers, promising order, yet whispers spread that certain commanders already met with serpent lieutenants in dark corners. Deals were made, bribes flowed. The serpent was not dead, it was adapting Camila's burden in the favelas. Camila walked through the rubble, her shotgun strapped across her back. Children ran to her, clinging to her legs. "Was saving Sil, Chia?" they asked. "Did you win, Auntie?" Camila knelt, brushing soot from their faces. "We survived. That is enough for today." But in her heart, she knew survival would not be enough tomorrow. She was tired, her arms ached from nights without sleep. Her wounds burned, yet neighbors looked at her like a general. They expected orders, protection, hope. Camila had never asked to lead, but leadership had found her, and it would not let go. Mariana's reckoning. Mariana sat before a cracked mirror, taping bandages across her ribs where bullets had grazed her. She stared at her reflection, haunted eyes, bruised skin. A woman who had bled for her city. Her broadcasts had lit the fire of revolution, but now they painted a target on her back, larger than ever. She whispered to herself, "I am not a soldier, I am only a voice." Yet she knew voices killed more kings than bullets. The serpent feared her words because they spread faster than gunfire, piercing places bullets could not reach. And so, despite her trembling hands, she turned the microphone back on. Raphael's collapse in the clinic. Raphael's body betrayed him. His stitches had torn during the march. An infection now burned through his blood. His fever returned, higher than before. Camila sat at his side, gripping his hand. "Stay with me." Raphael's eyes fluttered open, glassy and weak. "How many did we save?" Camila swallowed her tears. "Enough to fight another day." He smiled faintly. "Then the fisherman has done his work." The doctor shook his head. "If he keeps moving, He won't live another week. Camila's heart clenched. She had seen Raphael fight bullets, knives, and gangs, but now he was losing to his own blood. The serpent regroups while Rio celebrated survival. The serpent licked its wounds in the shadows of the docks. Jacquer gathered his men. He slammed his fist on a crate of weapons. Anna is dead. The fisherman lives, but we still have teeth. We strike before the people believe they've won in Rish. The Black Brothers rallied their soldiers, their eyes burned with vengeance. We were humiliated at the square. We will return with fire if we must drown Rio in blood. So be it, though divided. They shared one truth. The serpent would not die quietly, a fragile piece for a brief moment. Rio exhaled, streets reopened, markets bustled again, and music returned faintly to corners of the city. But the peace was fragile. Every checkpoint, every patrol, every shadow reminded people the war was not over. Camila stood on a rooftop, overlooking the city. We've bought time, she muttered. But time is not freedom. Mariana joined her, microphone slung across her shoulder. Then we use it, we prepare, we speak, we remind them this isn't just about gangs, it's about who owns Riodom, or us. Camila nodded, and Raphael. Mariana's voice softened. If he dies, the city might die with him. The fisherman's dream that night. Raphael drifted in fevered sleep. He dreamed of the sea-endless waves, the sound of gulls, the weight of his fishing net in his hands. In his dream, the net tore, and the fish slipped through. Writhing back into the ocean, he reached out, desperate. But his arms were weak. From the water rose the cobra's mask. Floating like a specter, it hissed. You cut off one head, but the body still rise. The sea is mine. Raphael woke with a gasp. Drenched in sweat, Camila clutching his hand. The fight had scarred his flesh, but now it gnawed at his spirit. The city thought it had won for 2 weeks. Music returned to Lapa. Markets reopened in the favelas, and the March of the Free was whispered like a legend. But legends are fragile. The serpent was not dead, was waiting. The night of fire. It began with fire in Complexo, Duelam. Masked men stormed a free zone at midnight, tossing Molotov cocktails into homes. Screams split the air as families fled into alleys, chased by gunfire. By dawn, 3 free zone leaders lay dead. Their bodies hung from lampposts with spray-painted warnings. A serpente ainda vive. The serpent still lives within hours. Chaos spread. Day bus in Copacabana exploded during rush hour. Police stations were ambushed in a hospital in Tijuca treating March survivors was stormed. Patients dragged out and executed in the street. The serpent had returned, not with subtlety, but with fire and spectacle. Camila's war. Camila woke to the sound of gunfire. A young boy banged on her door, eyes wide. Tia, they're here. Grabbing her shotgun, she sprinted into the street, where flames devoured a row of houses. Serpent soldiers advanced, rifles raised, their cobra tattoos glistening in the firelight. Camila barked orders. Barricades. Get the women and children out. Her neighbors, mechanics, cooks, students grabbed whatever weapons they had. Pots of boiling oil, rusted pistols, even broom handles. The clash was brutal. Camila moved like a storm, blasting through attackers, her voice cutting through the chaos. But the serpent fought like demons unleashed. They weren't trying to capture free zones this time. They wanted to terrorize, to prove they still owned Rio. By morning, Camila's people had pushed them back, but at a cost. 10 homes were gone. Dozens lay dead. Camila's arms shook as she wiped blood from her face. If this is what peace looks like, she muttered, then maybe there's no such thing in Rio. Mariana's discovery in her small studio. Mariana pieced together reports from listeners across the city. Attacks were too coordinated, too precise. She leaned over her microphone, her voice steady but sharp. This was not chaos, this was strategy. And strategy requires information. Who is feeding the serpent? Our names, our locations, our weaknesses. Her question hung heavy in the air. The answer came hours later, in a brown envelope slipped under her door. Inside were documents, classified police memos, government contracts, payment records. At the top of one page, Operation Redeemer. It revealed that federal commanders, stationed in Rio, had quietly released dozens of imprisoned serpent members, labeling them as informants. Worse, millions of reais had been funneled into security contracts connected to shell companies, companies owned by men linked to Jack Hare himself. Mariana's hands trembled. Meu Deus. The state isn't fighting the serpent, it's feeding it. Raphael's choice sat the clinic. Raphael heard the news. His fever had broken, but his body remained weak. Stitched wounds raw and angry, Camila knelt beside him, her eyes burning with exhaustion. The serpent is hitting every free zone. I can't hold them all. Raphael struggled to sit up. Then I go. You can't even walk without pain, she snapped. You'll die before you reach the street. Raphael gripped her arm, his voice low but firm. The people need to see me if they think the fisherman has fallen. Their hope falls with me. Camila's eyes softened, torn between fury and sorrow. Then at least let me walk with you together. They rose. Raphael's steps were slow, agonizing. But when he emerged into the street, neighbors cheered through their tears. The fisherman had returned, broken, limping, scarred but standing. The serpent's broadcast that night. Rio's airwaves carried a chilling sound, the voice of Jacare. The free think they've won. They think their fisherman can save them, but the serpent has many heads. And we will strike until Rio bleeds. This city is ours, always was, always will be. The broadcast ended with screams. Live captives, executed on air. Mariana slammed her fist on the table. He's turning propaganda into terror. But she knew what she had to do. Tomorrow she would release the documents. The world would learn the government's betrayal. The battle for the narrative. By dawn, two voices clashed across Rio. Jacare's promising blood and vengeance, exposing corruption and betrayal. Her broadcast was dangerous. Police raided her studio mid-transmission, smashing equipment, dragging her out in handcuffs, but not before her words spread. The serpent and the state are one. They will burn us together, unless we rise again. Clips of her voice went viral. Students replayed it on phones, graffiti artists painted it on walls, and protesters shouted it in the streets. The serpent had bullets, Mariana had truth. The smoke of revenge still hung over. Rio families buried their dead in silence, candles flickering on crumbling sidewalks, but grief soon hardened into resolve. Serpent had brought war into every alley. Now the people would carry it back. Camila's counterattack. Camila stood before a crowd of neighbors in the favela's ruined square. Her clothes were stained with ash, her hair pulled back tight. These soldiers of the serpent, she said, shotgun across her back, think we are prey, but we are the hunters of these streets. We know every corner, every alley, every rooftop. They have rifles, we have Rio. Her words sparked a fire in those gathered. Mechanics became armorers, teenagers, runners, mothers, strategists. Free zones transformed into fortified camps. The first strike came at night. Camila led a small unit through narrow passages, striking a serpent patrol with bottles of fire and stolen pistols. The ambush was quick, ruthless, and the message was clear. The people were no longer hiding. Raphael's final stand at the clinic. Raphael wrapped bandages tighter around his chest. Ignoring the doctors. Please, you step outside. You bleed out. The doctor warned. Raphael smiled faintly. Better to bleed in the street than rot in a bed. Camila found him adjusting his old fisherman's knife on his belt. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice breaking. Neither should any of us, he answered. But if I don't walk with you, what do the people see? That their fisherman hides while they fight. She wanted to scream, to beg him to stop, but she saw the fire in his eyes, the same fire that had kept the march alive, so she nodded to. They moved out. Raphael walked slower than before, but every step was watched, every gesture remembered. Children whispered, El Voltu, he has returned. Mariana the fugitive. Mariana's voice had exposed corruption, and now it marked her for death. The raid on her studio forced her into hiding. Police posters called her a domestic agitator, while serpent graffiti promised a bounty for her capture. She slept in abandoned buildings, moved at night, and broadcasted from hidden transmitters, carried in backpacks. Her latest message spread like wildfire. Do not believe the uniforms the serpent wears to face as one of the gang, and one of the state. If you want freedom, trust only yourselves. Her words made her the most wanted voice in Rio, but it also made her untouchable in the hearts of the people. The serpent strikes back in retaliation. Joker launched a campaign of terror-free zone. Leaders were kidnapped, their bodies dumped on busy roads, serpent graffiti marked walls, in blood in one chilling scene. A bus was hijacked, and passengers forced to chant the Sadagia Nosa before being executed, but with each act of terror, the serpent only hardened resistance. Raphael's last march. Raphael staggered into the street, knife at his belt, pistol shaking in his hand. His body screamed with pain, stitches tearing, blood soaking his shirt, but the people saw him, and their cries grew louder. "O pescador!" The fishermen. The serpent soldiers froze at the sight. Legends. They realized. Do not die. Easily Raphael charged. He fought with the fury of a man burning from the inside, slashing and firing, each step leaving blood in his wake. By the time he reached Jacker's line, his strength was nearly gone, but he kept moving. Mariana's broadcast, hidden in a crumbling bell tower. Mariana pointed her stolen camera toward the chaos. Her voice carried across hacked frequencies, hijacking every television, every phone, every screen. People of Rio, you see it now, the serpent and the state, together. Burning our homes. They tell you to hide, I tell you to rise. Tonight is not the end, tonight is the rebirth. The city is ours, if we take it. Her words traveled like fire, igniting courage in every favela. Ordinary citizens poured into the streets with pots, pans, sticks, stones, anything they could wield. The serpent had bullets. The people had millions of hands. The duel. Raphael reached the plaza where Jacker stood. The two locked eyes, hunter and hunted. Fisherman and serpent. Jacker sneered, "Old man, you should have stayed in your boat." Raphael coughed blood, but his grip tightened on the knife. "And you should have stayed in the gutter." They clashed. Jacker swung his rifle like a club. Raphael dodged, stabbing low. They circled, striking, bleeding. Groaning. Camila saw the duel, but was pinned in battle. Unable to reach him, she screamed his name, her voice drowned by gunfire. The fight ended in a flash. Raphael plunged his knife into Jacker's chest. Twisting deep, the cobra's eyes widened. His roar cut short. He staggered back, choking. Before collapsing into the flames, the serpent's head had fallen, the fisherman's sacrifice, but Raphael collapsed with him. His body finally gave in, torn by bullets, fire, and time. Camila rushed forward, catching him in her arms. "No, no, stay with me." Raphael smiled weakly, blood staining his lips. "You kept the net strong." His hand slipped from hers, and his eyes closed. The fisherman was gone for a moment. Silence gripped the battlefield. Then a roar erupted, not from the serpent, but from the people. They surged forward, overwhelming Jacker's men, pushing the state forces back. The sacrifice had become a spark. The fall of the serpent without Jacker. The serpent fractured. Fighters fled, others surrendered, and some melted into the shadows. The free raised banners over captured trucks, lit torches across rooftops, and marched through the streets chanting Raphael's name. Camila stood bloodied, but unbroken, her shotgun raised. "Rio is ours," she shouted, her voice carrying through the smoke. Mariana's broadcast spread the victory across Brazil, from São Paulo to Salvador. Crowds cheered, chanting "Somos livres, we are free." The aftermath. By dawn, the shooting had stopped, the serpent was shattered, the state humiliated. But Rio was scarred. Buildings lay in ruins. Families mourned their dead. The streets were coated in ash and blood. Yet for the first time, the city breathed. Frida Camila sat on a rooftop, staring at the horizon, Raphael's knife in her lap. She whispered, "We won, value, but it cost everything." Below her, murals of Raphael's face already appeared on walls, painted by children with trembling hands. The fisherman had become immortal. Now, the voice of a movement ended her broadcast with words that would echo across the nation. They tried to kill us with bullets. They tried to silence us with fear, but the people of Rio showed the world we cannot be killed, we cannot be silenced, we are the flame. Rio de Janeiro has always been a city of contradictions, a place where samba echoes through alleys painted in gold by the sun, and where shadows crawl with violence. When night falls, the serpent tried to own these streets. It ruled with terror, corruption, and blood, but, in the end, it wasn't bullets that defeated it. It was the people. It was the fisherman who rose from obscurity, giving hope with every scar. It was the woman who turned her grief into defiance, standing on rooftops with fire in her hands. It was the voice who refused to be silenced, her words stronger than any weapon. They proved that Rio belonged not to gangs, nor to corrupt politicians, but to the millions who walk its streets every day. But victory in Rio came at a price. Buildings lay in ruins, families mourned their dead, and even as the serpent fell, whispers remained, whispers of deals struck in Brazil, of new leaders waiting to wear old masks, because crime in Rio does not die. It changes its skin, it adapts, and it waits. This was the story of Rio de Janeiro, city of beauty, city of blood, city that whispers its crimes long after the shooting stops, and, somewhere, in the alleys of tomorrow, the next story is already waiting to be told. This was the story of Rio de Janeiro, city of beauty, city of blood, city that whispers its crimes long after the shooting stops, and, somewhere, in the alleys of tomorrow, the next story is already waiting to be told.